Hi everyone, welcome to the channel After All That Years.
12 years of marriage, and I thought we had something solid. Not flawless, no. What marriage is. But there was a foundation, or so I believed. An understanding. Vanessa and I didn't need to say it out loud. Loyalty came first. Always had. We met back in college. I was taken with her immediately. She had a magnetism, a kind of polished charisma that drew people in. She could walk into any room and have half the crowd smiling in minutes. I used to watch her, wondering how someone like her ever ended up with someone like me. She had this spark, and for a long time I believed I was part of what made it burn. Lately, though, something had shifted. It didn't happen all at once, more like a slow drip. Just little things I couldn't quite name at first. She started pulling back, like she was always somewhere else, even when she was right next to me. She'd leave the house more, saying she had work meetings or meetups with friends, even though she was never the social type. Then there was the phone. It never left her side. Constant buzzing, and each time it lit up, she'd smirk, maybe chuckle softly, and then tilt the screen away like it was some private joke I wasn't in on. I ignored it for a while, gave her the benefit of the doubt. But then came the night that changed everything. It was after dinner. We were clearing dishes when she looked at me. Not with warmth, not even with coldness, but with something in between. Like she'd already made peace with whatever she was about to do. "I need to tell you something," she said. Her voice was level. Too level. I wiped my hands on a towel and looked up. "What is it?" "I've been restless," she said, as if that explained it all. "This life. It's comfortable, but it's so predictable. I want to feel something new." "What are you talking about?" I asked, genuinely confused. "I'm going on a date," she said, as casually as if she were telling me she'd scheduled a dentist appointment. "It's just for the experience. I'll make it up to you later." I blinked at her, trying to make sense of the words. "You're... what?" She didn't flinch. "I'm serious, Mark. It's not about you. I just need something different, something exciting." "Vanessa, we're married," I said, the anger climbing before I could contain it. "We took vows. We have a family." She sighed like I was the one being unreasonable. "You're overreacting," she said, brushing past me. "I'll come back. We'll move on." Overreacting. The sheer audacity of it knocked the breath out of me. After everything we'd built, the sacrifices, the long nights, the shared griefs and joys, she was walking out for what? A thrill? A story to tell later over wine? I told her she was making a mistake, that she'd regret this, that there would be consequences. She just smiled, like she knew better, and walked out the door without even looking back. That night I sat alone in the quiet of our living room, the soft hum of the refrigerator the only sound, and made a choice. I wasn't going to let her rewrite the end of our story while I stood on the sidelines. The next morning I woke early, unrested but wide awake. Her side of the bed was still untouched. I stared at it for a long time. That one empty space said more than any of her words ever could. I made coffee, went through the motions, but everything felt off. The kitchen too quiet. The house suddenly unfamiliar. Then my phone buzzed. For a split second, I hoped. Maybe she'd come to her senses. Maybe she was calling to apologize. But it wasn't her. It was my younger brother, Jason. "You good?" he asked, not bothering with small talk. "You sound off." I hesitated. Jason had always been a straight shooter, protective, loyal, and probably the worst person to tell something like this to if I wanted to keep things calm. But I needed someone. "She told me she's going on a date," I said. Just laid it out. There was silence on the other end. "She what?" Jason finally said. "Said she wanted something new, exciting, like she's some contestant on a dating show." "Jesus, Mark. And you just let her?" "What was I supposed to do, Jason?" I snapped. "She didn't ask. She told me, then walked out like it was nothing." He was quiet again. Then, "So what's the plan?" I didn't answer right away, because honestly, I didn't know yet, but I wasn't going to sit back. I'll figure out what she's doing, I finally said. If she wants to treat this like some game, then fine. I'll play, but on my terms. Just don't do anything stupid, he said. Call me if you need backup. I promised I would. And that was the beginning. That same afternoon, I sat down with my laptop and pulled up our joint bank account. Vanessa had always been careful with money, bordering on frugal, so the recent string of odd charges caught my attention right away. A few dinners at places I'd never heard of, a boutique downtown that she'd never once mentioned, a spa visit. Nothing blatantly incriminating, but all of it just out of step with how she usually spent. Something was off, and now I had to know just how far off. That evening she came home late again. Hair done, makeup fresh, flushed from wine or flattery, maybe both. Have a good time? I asked, leaning against the kitchen counter, trying to keep my voice light. Wonderful, she replied without a trace of guilt, dropping her purse on the couch. You really should learn to loosen up, Mark. It's freeing. I forced a thin smile. Good to know. Later, while she was in the shower, I grabbed her phone off the counter and started scrolling. My hands were shaking, not just from nerves, but from the weight of what I expected to find. Most of it was harmless, group chats, work-related threads. But then I saw a name I didn't recognize. Nathan. The messages weren't long, and they weren't explicit. But they were enough. Short exchanges about seeing each other soon, confirming times and locations. Just enough to make your stomach drop. By the time she stepped out of the bathroom, her towel wrapped tight and her face relaxed from the steam, I had already placed her phone back exactly where I found it. 2 days later, she told me she was going out again. This time, just a night with friends. I followed her, kept my distance, drove slow, watched her pull into the lot of a quiet little bistro on the other side of town. Watched her step out of the car, brush her hair back, and smile in a way I hadn't seen in years. And then I saw him. Tall, expensive suit. The kind of practiced confidence you only get from charm or ego. Maybe both. Vanessa walked straight to him like she'd been doing it for months. Her hand touched his arm as they went inside. I didn't go in, didn't confront her. I just sat in my car, fingers clenched tight around the wheel, trying not to lose it. That night, she came home humming to herself, a little too tipsy, a little too proud. She didn't say a word about where she'd been, and I didn't ask. Instead, I got to work. If she was going to dismantle our marriage piece by piece, then I was going to make damn sure she didn't get to walk away clean. The next morning, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Clarity. I called Jason and told him everything. She met him at that place off Elm, I said, pacing the living room. I saw her. I saw them together. Jason didn't even pause. You need to find out who he is. You need proof. I know. Remember Mike? He asked. That private investigator I mentioned? He's good, quiet, efficient. The idea made my stomach turn. Hiring a PI felt like something out of a bad movie. But what Vanessa was doing wasn't fiction. Get me his number, I said. By that evening, I was sitting in a small office tucked between a dry cleaner and a law firm. Mike was built like a linebacker, with a trimmed beard and a voice that didn't waste words. He listened while I laid everything out. The distance, the excuses, the man I saw. He took notes, nodded, didn't interrupt. Sounds like a pattern I've seen too many times, he said when I finished. You've got a number? Socials? She keeps her phone locked, but I know her number. She's on Facebook and LinkedIn. Maybe Instagram too. That'll do. He leaned back. Give me a few days. As I stepped out into the parking lot, the sun already low in the sky, I felt something shift. Fear was still there, sure. So was heartbreak. But underneath it all, for the first time in weeks, maybe months, I felt in control. She thought she was ahead. But the board had just reset. Mike didn't even need the full week. 3 days later, he called and told me we needed to meet. You're going to want to see this in person, he said. Back in his office, he slid a folder across the desk. I opened it slowly, half hoping it was a mistake, half knowing exactly what I was about to find. There they were, clear as day. Photos of Vanessa and Nathan walking into a hotel together, arm in arm. Another of them laughing over drinks, her hand resting on his leg like it was second nature. And the texts. Mike had pulled her phone records and message logs. They weren't vague anymore. These were explicit, flirty, intimate. Plans for the next weekend. Comments about me. Mocking, dismissive. She'd built an entire second life. Mike gave a small shake of his head. I wish I could say this surprises me, Mark. But it doesn't. I didn't say anything. Just kept staring at the photos like they might disappear if I looked long enough. This wasn't just a fling. She hadn't just tripped into someone else's bed. She had planned this, chosen it, nurtured it. That night she came home even later. Same routine. Heels off at the door, wine poured without so much as a glance in my direction. Long day? I asked, keeping my tone neutral. Exhausting, she muttered. You wouldn't understand. Oh, I think I do, I said. I let the silence sit. By the way, who's Nathan? She froze. The glass stopped halfway to her lips. Excuse me? You heard me, I said. Nathan Cole, who is he? Her face twisted into a sneer almost immediately. Jesus, Mark, are you seriously snooping through my messages now? That's pathetic. You've been lying to me, I said, stepping toward her. Sneaking around, meeting him behind my back, and I'm the pathetic one? She rolled her eyes and scoffed. You're being dramatic. He's just a friend. We've worked on a few projects. That's it. Then explain the hotel, I said, my voice sharp. Explain the messages, the dinners, the touching. For a second, I saw it. Panic. But she buried it fast. You're delusional, she hissed. This is why I needed space. You're paranoid, controlling. You always have been. My fists clenched at my sides. Don't you dare put this on me. You're the one who broke your vows. You're the one who lied. Maybe if you'd been more present, she shot back, her voice like ice, I wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere. Her words cut deep, but I didn't flinch. Get out, I said. Take your purse and go stay with him. If he's so exciting, then go be with him. She glared at me, grabbed her wine, and headed upstairs. I'm not going anywhere, Mark. This is my house, too. I didn't stop her, but I made a promise to myself right then. She wasn't going to keep dragging me through the dirt. The evidence was real, and now I was going to use it. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch, that folder of photos and transcripts spread out across the coffee table. Every word she'd said, every twisted attempt to blame me, echoed in my head. You're paranoid. You're insecure. Maybe if you paid more attention. She was trying to rewrite the narrative. Make me the villain in her little story. But I wasn't going to play along. The next morning, I called Jason. I need you to watch the kids tonight. Of course, he said. What's going on? I'm turning the tables. Later that day, I sat down with Mike again. He'd dug up more records, including bank activity that raised even more red flags. Vanessa had been taking money out of our joint savings. Thousands. Where's it going? I asked. Some of it looks like gifts, Mike said, flipping through the documents. Boutique purchases, spa packages, hotel bookings. She's not even trying to cover it up. My chest tightened. She thinks she's untouchable, I muttered. Mike nodded. That's how they always act. But they always leave a trail. I left his office with a plan. That evening, while Vanessa was out again, likely with Nathan, I met with my lawyer, Rachel Klein. Rachel was sharp as a tack. No nonsense, composed, with the kind of voice that cut through fog. I laid everything out. The affair, the financials, the photos, the texts. She listened without flinching, then smiled. She's toast, Rachel said. But don't go charging at her yet. Let her dig deeper. We'll file a temporary custody order first thing tomorrow. I nodded slowly. And the house? If we show financial recklessness or prove she's using it to conduct the affair, we'll have leverage. When I left her office, I wasn't angry anymore. I was ready. Vanessa got home late that night, same as always. The click of her heels echoed through the hallway as she breezed into the kitchen, acting like nothing had changed. "Late again?" I said, keeping my tone flat. She didn't look at me. "What's it to you?" she said, pouring herself a glass of wine like she'd earned it. I stood slowly from the couch. "Just noticed you've been putting in a lot of extra hours." She gave me a smirk over her shoulder. "Somebody's got to keep this place running. Not that you'd know anything about that." Her arrogance was exhausting, but I didn't bite. "You're right," I said, walking toward her. "I don't know what it's like to lie, to cheat, to throw away a marriage." That got her attention. She set her glass down a little too hard and turned to face me. "Are we doing this again? Another one of your insecure rants? It's getting old, Mark." I met her eyes. "This isn't about insecurity. This is about the truth. And whether you like it or not, it's all coming out." She paused, just long enough to register that I meant it, then rolled her eyes. "You really need help," she said, and brushed past me on her way upstairs. But she was rattled. I saw it in the way she avoided looking back. That was all I needed. The next day, I took the next step. I contacted the bank and froze our joint accounts. I told them there were suspicious withdrawals, and I didn't feel comfortable with continued access on both sides. Then I changed the locks on the house. Legally, she still had rights to it. I wasn't kicking her out, but I wanted to make it clear. Things were different now. That evening, she came home to find herself locked out. I opened the door just a crack. "What the hell, Mark?" she shouted, her voice shrill. "Open the damn door." "New rules," I said calmly. "If you want to stay here, we're going to sit down and have a real conversation. No games." She narrowed her eyes but said nothing. She stepped inside, the usual click of her heels now more like a warning shot. "Talk," she said, arms folded across her chest. I didn't say a word. I walked over to the coffee table, picked up the folder Mike had put together and handed it to her. She flipped it open, and her face went pale. The photos, the texts, the credit card statements. She slammed it shut. "You've been spying on me." "I've been protecting myself," I replied. "Something you stopped doing a long time ago." For the first time in months, she had no comeback. "I'm giving you two choices," I said, stepping in close. "You pack your things and go quietly, or we take this to court. Either way, I'm done letting you walk all over me." She hesitated. For a second, I thought she might crack. Maybe apologize. Maybe even cry. But instead, the venom returned to her voice. "You think you're so clever," she hissed. "You think this is over. It's not." She grabbed her purse and stormed out without another word. I stood there for a long time, just listening to the silence. It wasn't over, not by a long shot. But I wasn't afraid anymore. The next morning, I was making pancakes for the kids when my phone buzzed again and again. At first, I ignored it. I figured it was Vanessa throwing another tantrum. Then Jason called. "Have you seen Facebook?" he asked, voice tight. "No," I said, already feeling my stomach drop. "She posted this huge rant. Says you've been abusive, controlling, gaslighting her for years." I dropped the spatula on the counter and opened the app. There it was. A long, emotional post filled with accusations. She called me toxic, said I manipulated her, that I isolated her from friends and ruined her sense of self-worth. And of course, she included a photo of herself crying. Tears, makeup smudged, a carefully composed tragedy. The comments were a mess. Some people consoled her. Others told her to take it down. A few were asking questions, trying to make sense of it. "What's her endgame?" Jason asked. "She's trying to spin the narrative," I said. "She knows the truth is coming, and she's trying to get ahead of it." "So what now?" "Nothing," I said after a beat. "Not yet." But I knew what I had to do. That afternoon, I was called into my boss's office. Greg Taylor had been my manager for nearly a decade. Good guy. Fair. "Mark," he said gently, I hate to bring this up, but someone sent me a link to your wife's post. I sighed, rubbing my eyes. I don't want to dig into your personal life, he continued, but it's become a distraction. People are talking. I get it, I said. I'm in the middle of a rough separation. She's throwing everything she can to stay in control, but none of it's true. Greg gave a nod. Just keep it off the radar, all right? You've always been solid here. Understood. That night, I showed the post to Rachel. She didn't even flinch. This actually helps us, she said. How? She's leaving a paper trail. Public accusations, emotional instability, we can use this. A small spark of hope lit in my chest. For once, her drama was finally turning into something useful. The next day, something unexpected happened. I got a message from Tracy Whitman, one of Vanessa's oldest friends. We'd never been close, and to be honest, I always assumed Tracy would take her side no matter what. But this message surprised me. Hey Mark, I just want to say I'm sorry for what Vanessa's putting you through. I didn't realize how bad it had gotten until recently. I stared at the screen, unsure if I should respond. Was this a setup? Some kind of trap? Before I could even decide, she sent another message. Screenshots. There, in black and white, were messages between Tracy and Vanessa. In them, Vanessa admitted to the affair. Worse, she bragged about how she was going to ruin me. She joked about how easy it was to make me look unstable. She said I was too soft, too trusting. I'm not proud of what she's doing, Tracy wrote. But you deserve to know. I forwarded the entire exchange to Rachel immediately. It was the missing puzzle piece we hadn't even known we needed. Proof, not just of the affair, but of intent, of deliberate sabotage. That evening, Vanessa showed up at the house without warning. She was angry. I could hear her pounding on the door before I even reached it. I opened it only part way, keeping the chain lock in place. What do you want, Vanessa? You think you're so clever? She snapped. Freezing our accounts? Changing the locks? What kind of man does that to the mother of his kids? A man who's finally had enough of being lied to, I said. You want to talk about dragging people through the mud? You might want to look at your Facebook posts. Her face twitched with fury, but she was still trying to keep up the act. You're pathetic, Mark. Weak. No wonder I left you. A real man would have fought for his family. I let out a quiet, bitter laugh. You mean the way you fought for us by sleeping with Nathan behind my back? Save it. The court's going to see right through you. She flinched, but then quickly masked it with defiance. You haven't won anything, she hissed. No, I said, calm as I closed the door in her face. But it's finally begun. That night, I felt a kind of quiet I hadn't felt in weeks. Not peace exactly, but something close to readiness. I wasn't reacting to her chaos anymore. I was ahead of it. With Tracy's screenshots and everything Mike had uncovered, Rachel and I had a solid case. It was no longer about reacting. It was about making sure the truth came out in court. Vanessa thought she could burn everything down and walk away clean. She had no idea how wrong she was. The day of the hearing came. The courthouse was cold, sterile. Rachel and I sat on one side of the courtroom while Vanessa sat across from us, flanked by a high-priced attorney and dressed like she was going to a fundraiser. Sleek black dress, her hair pulled tight. She smiled at me, all smug confidence. But it didn't reach her eyes. The judge entered, a serious-looking woman in her 50s. And everything went still. Vanessa's lawyer opened with a dramatic speech about a neglected woman rediscovering herself, and how I'd been cold, dismissive, emotionally distant. It was a performance, all of it. They painted Vanessa as a mother who only wanted stability, who had endured years of emotional abandonment. I clenched my jaw but said nothing. Rachel had warned me. Let them dig their own hole. Then it was our turn. Rachel stood with quiet authority and began to peel away the lies one by one. First, the financials. Thousands of dollars spent from joint accounts, none of it traceable to family needs. Then the texts, flirtatious, explicit, undeniable. Then came the screenshots from Tracy, Vanessa's own words, damning and smug. But the turning point was the Facebook post. "Your Honor," Rachel said, handing over the printouts. "My client has endured an online smear campaign. The defendant's posts weren't private. They were strategic, designed to shape public perception and intimidate." The judge reviewed them in silence, her brow furrowing. Vanessa's lawyer tried to object, but the judge waved it off. "This speaks directly to the character of the parties involved," she said, "and their fitness as co-parents." Then came the final blow. Melanie Cole, Nathan's ex-wife. She took the stand with a calm, icy precision. She detailed how she discovered the affair, how it destroyed her marriage, how Vanessa encouraged Nathan to leave his own family, even helped him plan for it. She didn't exaggerate. She didn't even raise her voice. But every word hit like a sledgehammer. By the time she finished, the energy in the courtroom had shifted entirely. Vanessa sat stiffly in her chair, barely able to look up. Her lawyer looked like he was already working on the damage control strategy. The judge called for a recess. I didn't look at Vanessa. I didn't need to. When the judge returned, the air in the courtroom was thick with anticipation. Vanessa's facade had cracked, and now we waited for the verdict to finish the job. The judge adjusted her glasses, cleared her throat, and began. Based on the evidence presented, it is clear that Mrs. Reynolds has acted in ways that are not in the best interest of the children. Her voice was steady, unshaken. Mr. Reynolds will retain primary custody. Mrs. Reynolds will be granted supervised visitation. Furthermore, due to Mrs. Reynolds' financial misconduct, her claims to joint marital assets will be reviewed. The gavel came down. It was over. Vanessa didn't move. Her attorney leaned in to whisper something, but she didn't respond. Her face had gone pale, her lips tight. It was the first time in months that I'd seen her without some expression of control, or arrogance, or performance. Across the room, Rachel gave me a small nod. Her version of a victory dance. Outside the courthouse, I barely made it 2 steps before Vanessa cornered me in the parking lot. "You think you've won?" She hissed, her voice low and sharp. "You're going to regret this." I met her eyes. "No," I said, quiet but sure. "I regret trusting you for so long, but I'll never regret protecting our kids." She turned sharply and stormed off, her heels clacking across the asphalt. For the first time in years, I felt the weight on my chest start to lift. The battle had been brutal, but I hadn't lost myself in it. I'd fought for what mattered, and I'd made it through. In the days that followed, life felt strangely calm. The kids and I settled into a new rhythm, one without late-night arguments, whispered lies, or tension lingering in every corner of the house. The silence in the evenings no longer felt hollow. It felt like peace. I'd wake early, make breakfast, pack lunches, drop them off at school. The normalcy of it all became its own kind of healing. I found myself breathing easier, sleeping deeper, thinking clearly for the first time in months. The kids adjusted surprisingly well. They didn't ask many questions about Vanessa, and as much as that broke my heart a little, it was also telling. Even before the divorce, she had started fading from their lives. Physically present, maybe, but emotionally, she'd already checked out. They laughed more, played more, fought less. For the first time in a long while, our house felt like home. But I wasn't naive enough to think it was over. Vanessa wasn't the kind to disappear quietly. And sure enough, the silence didn't last. It started with texts. Short, bitter things. "You've brainwashed the kids. You'll regret taking everything from me." I didn't respond, just forwarded each message to Rachel, who assured me we were on firm ground legally. Still, the words lingered. Not because they were true, but because they were reminders that she wasn't done trying to spin her story. Then came a call I hadn't expected. From Melanie Cole. "Mark," she said, her voice cautious. "I thought you should know. Vanessa's been trying to reach Nathan again." I felt my jaw tighten. "Why?" "She's telling him you're ruining her life, that you manipulated the whole court process. She's trying to win him back, or at least get him on her side. Is he falling for it? No, Melanie said. He told me about it. Sent me screenshots. She's unraveling, Mark. Thought you should be aware. I thanked her and hung up. Another storm was clearly brewing, but I'd weathered worse. That weekend, Vanessa showed up at the kids' soccer game. Uninvited. Smiling like she hadn't just tried to torch our lives a few weeks earlier. The kids spotted her right away. Their excitement was mixed with confusion. "Mommy's here!" my youngest shouted, running toward her. I took a breath and forced myself to stay composed as I walked over. "Vanessa," I said, voice low, "you're not supposed to be here. You know the visitation terms." She gave me a smile that didn't touch her eyes. "I'm just here to watch my kids. That's not a crime." Before I could respond, a friend of mine, another parent named Greg, stepped up beside me. "Everything all right here?" he asked, cool and steady. Vanessa's smile faltered just for a second. "Everything's fine. Just a misunderstanding." "Good," Greg replied. "Let's keep it that way." I gently steered the kids back toward the field. Vanessa lingered at the edge of the game for the rest of the afternoon, just far enough to avoid breaking any rules, just close enough to make her presence known. After the final whistle blew, she tried to approach again. "Vanessa, you need to leave," I said quietly but firmly. "You can't keep me away from my kids forever," she snapped. "I'm not," I said. "But you'll follow the rules, or you won't see them at all." She stared at me, seething, before turning on her heel and walking away. That night, after the kids had gone to bed, my youngest came into the living room holding his favorite blanket and rubbing his eyes. "Dad," he said, "why doesn't Mommy live with us anymore?" The question stopped me cold. I knelt beside him, pulling him into my arms. "Sometimes grown-ups don't get along," I said gently. "But your mom and I both love you. That will never change." He nodded sleepily, satisfied with the answer, and I walked him back to bed. But after I closed his door, I just stood in the hallway for a long time, staring at nothing. Vanessa had forced me into this role, both father and mother, protector and nurturer. I hadn't asked for it, but I was determined to do it right. The following week, Vanessa launched her next assault. Another dramatic Facebook post, this time accusing me of alienating the children and painting herself as the victim once more. It was so over the top it almost didn't bother me. But of course, people saw it. Some reached out in support. Others asked awkward questions, clearly trying to gauge which side to believe. Again, I refused to engage publicly, but I made sure Rachel had screenshots of everything. "She's digging her own grave," Rachel said during our next meeting. "Let her keep going. The more erratic she gets, the better it is for us." Even so, the stress was starting to catch up with me. I felt it in my shoulders, in the way I flinched every time my phone buzzed. I started bracing for impact every time I opened my email. But I kept going. For the kids. For the life I was trying to rebuild. Just when I thought things were finally settling. She filed an appeal. Rachel called me on a Monday morning. I was sipping coffee, listening to the rain, finally feeling like I could breathe again. "She's filed for full custody," Rachel said flatly. I nearly dropped the mug. "She doesn't have a leg to stand on," I said, pacing the kitchen. "She knows that," Rachel replied. "This isn't about winning. It's about exhausting you. Financially. Emotionally. She's hoping you'll cave." "What's her claim now?" "She's alleging parental alienation. Says you're turning the kids against her." It was laughable, if it weren't so serious. I spent the next several days gathering everything I could. Text logs, visitation schedules, call records, anything to show that I hadn't kept her from the kids, that she had, time and again, chosen not to show up. Then, out of nowhere, a knock at the door. It was Melanie again. She looked serious, folder in hand. "I thought you should have this," she said, stepping inside. Inside were messages between Vanessa and Nathan. Conversations where she laid out plans to manipulate the court, to paint me as abusive, to convince Nathan to support her appeal. She's still trying to pull him in, Melanie said. But he's done. He sent me these and told me to do whatever I wanted. I sat down, flipping through each screenshot with growing disbelief. This wasn't just desperation anymore. It was calculated. Cold. Thank you, I said. Just take her down, Melanie said, and left with a quiet nod. With that evidence in hand, Rachel and I prepared for the next hearing. This time, we weren't just defending. We were going on offense. The day of the hearing, Vanessa walked in like she was already victorious. Full makeup, designer blazer, flanked by the same arrogant attorney. She gave me a tight little smirk as she sat down across from me. But as the proceedings began, that smirk began to crack. Rachel moved like a surgeon, calm, precise, unshakable. She started with the breach of visitation orders, then the online harassment. Then came the screenshots from Nathan, courtesy of Melanie. Each item chipped away at Vanessa's carefully constructed persona. Then Melanie took the stand. She spoke clearly, evenly. She described Vanessa's behavior, the manipulation, the pressure, the lies. And when Vanessa was asked to respond, her voice was shaky, her explanations thin. The judge didn't need to press her. The damage was done. After closing statements, the judge took less than 30 minutes to return with a decision. Mrs. Reynolds' appeal is denied. Custody arrangement remains as previously ordered. Additionally, the court finds that Mrs. Reynolds filed this appeal in bad faith and orders her to pay a portion of the petitioner's legal fees. I exhaled slowly. The tension that had been sitting on my shoulders for months seemed to lift, piece by piece. As we exited the courtroom, Vanessa stopped me one last time. "You'll regret this," she said, venom in every word. I looked her in the eye. "I regret ever trusting you," I said. "But not this, not protecting my kids." She turned and stormed off, and that was the last time she tried to fight me in court. The weeks that followed were quiet, almost eerily so. Vanessa didn't reach out, no texts, no social media rants, no surprise appearances. It was as if the fight had finally left her. The kids and I settled into a steady rhythm. Our home no longer felt like a war zone. It felt like a refuge again. The sound of laughter replaced the low-grade tension that used to hum through the walls. We found our footing, slowly but surely. There were still hard days, of course. Nights when the kids missed their mom. Moments when I questioned how it had all gone so far off track. But they were fewer now, and I didn't carry the weight of it alone anymore. One evening, I sat on the porch with my oldest. The sky was streaked with orange and gold, and we watched the sun sink behind the trees in companionable silence. "Things feel better now," he said softly, not looking at me. I nodded. "Yeah, they really do." He leaned his head on my shoulder for a moment before heading back inside. I sat there for a while longer, letting that simple sentence wash over me. Things felt better. It didn't mean they were perfect or easy. But for the first time in a long while, they were ours. Vanessa's betrayal had changed everything, cracked the foundation of my life in ways I never saw coming. But it also revealed something else. That I could survive. That I could protect my kids, even when everything felt like it was falling apart. That no matter how messy the truth is, it's always worth fighting for. I used to believe loyalty meant staying, no matter what. Now I know better. Loyalty, real loyalty, sometimes means walking away. Sometimes it means standing your ground. And sometimes it just means refusing to let someone else decide the story's ending for you. Vanessa tried to destroy our family. She failed. And I'm not just surviving anymore. I'm living.